Prince Harry is embarking on what I believe is the most kamikaze court case in the history of Britain. On Monday, he will attempt to bring down the Daily Mail newspaper, now the biggest and most important newspaper in Britain. Historically, one of the most famous newspapers in the world, with a footprint that is vast because it includes the Daily Mail website, which is now making waves in the United States. And he is relying on a cabal of criminals, of phone hackers, of drunks, of, let me tell you, the most nasty people in the world, and a slippery, slimy lawyer who's got his claws into Elton John and David Furnish to try and bring down this newspaper, which insists that it has never hacked a phone. So, Tom Sykes, the scene is set. Harry's reputation is on the line. And remember, I know the people involved. I know the people involved on his side, the byline Times people. And Harry is now relying on criminals to try and bring down the Daily Mail. Is this going to explode in his face? And if it does, can he ever be trusted again?
So this case kicks off on Monday. There's actually a pre-trial hearing going on at the moment. I haven't actually gone to it because they tend to be quite procedural.
Yeah.
But I'm told by sources that basically it's consisted of the judge, Justice Nicklin, just really losing his rag with David Sherborne, who's this kind of perma-tanned lawyer who's made millions out of representing Harry in all these cases. And the judge is clearly not impressed. Nicklin is clearly not impressed with Sherborne, as I'm told has been less than complimentary about his preparation for the case. And it's not hard to see why, because as you say, Harry, the key three people that Harry has been relying on are, Gavin Burrows, Graham Johnson, and remind me of the third person's name. I can't quite. It's escaped me.
Yes.
But the most relevant of these, right, is Gavin Burrows. Okay, and Gavin Burrows gave a very lengthy witness statement saying that all kinds of things that he'd done on behalf of the Daily Mail, that even to the extent of that he'd accessed records that he'd given to the Daily Mail and then shared with the police. I mean, it's fantasy kind of stuff. To me, it seems like absolutely unbelievable. And then guess what? He turned around and said that the entire statement was a forgery and that his signature on the statement was a forgery. Now, Sherborne has tried to sort of say, oh well, actually, this is he's using this to try and undermine us and blah blah. But it's completely the case is a complete sort of mess. Anyway, now we all know that Harry hates the Daily Mail, right? And I'm sure that Harry would love nothing better. Like, if Harry wins the case, and who knows, like, you can talk to any lawyer in the world. You can have the best case or the worst case. I mean, it's a mystery what happens in there. Both sides think they have a strong case to win. Neither side is interested in settling, I'm told. But I mean, they always say that, but whether they will settle on the steps, they could do. But if the Mail loses this, potentially bang goes the Telegraph bid. I mean, like, that's just for starters. You know, where does it leave Harmsworth,
Well,
the owner of the
and
Mail?
indeed,
Where does it leave Paul Dacre's knighthood? Not in
and
a great
criminal.
place, I would suggest.
Potential criminal investigations, because remember, that's what Harry desperately wants. He wants people locked up. After the civil case win versus the Daily Mirror, he suggested that there should be a police investigation into Piers Morgan. And the other person I think that you were referring to is Glenn Mulcair, who of course did go to jail. He was one of the key phone hackers in the News of the World case, who was jailed alongside Andy Coulson. So it's messy. But people are going to be interested in this case, and it will get international attention, because I should just run everyone through who the co-defendants are, Tom, because, I mean, we are talking huge names. Obviously, Elton John, pretty much biggest music star in the world. David Furnish, his husband. Elizabeth Hurley, you know, very, very famous, including in America. Sadie Frost, maybe less so now as an actress, but very well known. And then you've got Baroness Doreen Lawrence and Sir Simon Hughes. Maybe not household names, but Doreen Lawrence, of course, previously very close with the Daily Mail, who led the investigation into the death of her son. So woke ITV News, which I always say is very much firmly in the Team Harry and Meghan case, they provided a curtain raiser of this case and have spoken to Doreen Lawrence, who is furious that there hasn't been a settlement. So clearly, in her mind, she didn't actually want this to go to court at all. What she wanted was a big, fat check. Watch this.
Prince Harry is heading back to court with a glittering supporting cast, each in a legal battle with what is arguably Britain's most influential news title. But perhaps the most dramatic evidence will come from fellow claimant Doreen Lawrence, more than 30 years after the racist murder of her son. The Mail famously championed her cause. But she claims the paper was also targeting her, tapping and hacking her phone, paying police officers for information. She says she feels betrayed. The Mail denies the allegations. But ahead of the trial, her lawyers have told ITV News Baroness Lawrence is disappointed that the Daily Mail has yet to accept and apologise for its intrusion on her privacy and has forced her to go to trial. She had hoped that the Daily Mail would not have wanted her to endure the obvious stress of litigation, given what she has gone through and continues to go through.
Well, no, that's not how it works, is it? I mean, it's how people try and use the court, force people into settlements over things that aren't true, just to avoid the embarrassment. But the Mail absolutely denying the claims, which does mean, I mean, you never know. Sometimes there is a morning of settlement. We saw that in Harry's case versus News UK, which, by the way, I was preparing to testify at and had gone through all of my preparation to testify. And then the case was actually settled on the morning evidence was due to begin. But according to what the Mail are telling ITV News at the moment, no settlement. Watch.
The Mail contests the claims with vigour. Its publisher, Associated Newspapers, told us from day one Associated has always described these allegations as preposterous. Since then, the claimant's two main potential witnesses have retracted their claims against Associated. 14 years ago, the Daily Mail on oath told the Leveson inquiry that it did not hack phones. We stand by that today.
So, Tom, I think there's going to be a huge moment on Monday, isn't there? On Monday morning, does the case actually begin? Is Prince Harry there in court? If so, it's game on. It becomes a lot harder to settle once you've actually begun. And even at this point, I think Justice Nicklin would be furious if there was a last-minute settlement. Certainly, in terms of the News UK case, he was really unhappy that it came right down to the wire.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'm told by insiders at the Mail is that the Mail are, how it was described to me, are very hurt by Baroness Lawrence turning against them. They have tried to explain to her that they believe that she is being manipulated. They point out that they went into bat for her at the horrific racist murder of her son, with that famous front page, "Murderers, if we are wrong, let them sue." And I am told that there is absolutely no appetite on the Daily Mail's side to settle unless the other side drop the case. But the other side can now no longer afford to drop the case because the bills are approaching £37 million already, about 50 million US dollars. So everybody has got themselves into a hell of a mess with this, where they've reached a stage where it's effectively, it's so bad that they're going to, all these people, it's going to cost so much money. There are rumors that there's some sort of Max Mosley money funding some of it. But as the bottom line is that these shady witnesses who are being used to gather the evidence on Harry and on the claimant's side are clearly using the exact same tactics that the tabloids, that they accuse the tabloids of using. So, I mean, at what point can you really take someone who you're saying is a really untrusty, shady criminal, been to jail, phone hacker, blah, 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 and say, oh, actually, now we believe everything they say? I mean, we've seen it all before, right? We've seen it with, Dan Evans and all these kind of, people who suddenly miraculously turned from, on the court steps, turned from, poachers into gamekeepers. And I just think that it's,
These
a lot of people.
These are scumbag human beings. And here's the thing, Tom, I know you've worked at a lot of newspapers. So have I. And I've worked at these newspapers in question. The Sun, the News of the World, the Daily Mail. You do not have to break the law to do good journalism. You didn't have to break the law to do good journalism. I never used a private investigator, never hacked a phone, gave evidence in the Leveson inquiry that you can go and read online right now to make that point. So these people are criminals. They are scumbags, and they can try and say as much as they want, oh, Murdoch forced me into it, or my editors forced me into it, or whatever. But they were the individuals breaking the law, and they got caught. And the fact that they have been given this second opportunity to make a whole load of money, to do a whole load of deals because of Prince Harry, I find it completely bizarre and very, very odd. But Harry has this lust for revenge, and he tried it with me and he failed because it simply wasn't true. This is the problem. A lot of what these criminals were telling him about me, I know for a fact, were not true, but he got convinced that it must be true. So he launched this legal action about where I got the exit story from, and it just wasn't true. So he had to withdraw it. But I think the same thing has happened here. Now, Tom, if we actually look forward to next week, it's Thursday that Harry is scheduled to give evidence, to actually testify in the witness box. Now, I know it's happened during the Mirror case, but we can't underestimate what a significant moment this will be. Someone who remains so high up in the line of succession, someone who, I'm just going to be frank about it, Tom, has a track record of lying. The Daily Mail barristers are going to be absolutely desperate to trip him up. I mean, how significant could this moment be?
This opening frames the entire saga perfectly. Prince Harry isn't just suing a newspaper, he's taking on the most powerful media institution in Britain. The Daily Mail isn't some fringe tabloid, it's a global news machine with massive reach in the UK and the US. Calling this kamikaze is not exaggeration, it's strategic suicide if the evidence collapses. Because once you accuse a publication of criminality at this level, you don't walk away with your reputation intact if you lose. The real danger. Harry is no longer attacking headlines, he's attacking institutions. Here's the key question the segment nails. If this explodes, can Harry ever be trusted again? This isn't about privacy anymore. It's about credibility. Once a senior royal relies on convicted criminals and disgraced figures to validate his claims, the burden of proof flips brutally onto him. This is no longer Prince versus press. This is Harry versus reality. Justice Nicklin's reported frustration with David Sherborne is a huge red flag. Judges don't lose their rag lightly, especially in high-profile cases. If preparation is sloppy, witnesses shaky, and claims exaggerated, judicial sympathy evaporates fast. And when the judge isn't impressed, the jury of public opinion won't be either. This is the core rot of the case. Gavin Burrows' witness statement, later claimed to be a forgery, is catastrophic. You cannot build a multi-million-pound legal assault on testimony that collapses under basic scrutiny. When your star witness says, "Actually, that wasn't me. That signature isn't mine." That's not a crack, that's structural failure. This segment exposes the emotional driver behind the case: revenge, not justice. Harry doesn't just want damages, he wants people prosecuted, reputations destroyed, and institutions humiliated. That thirst makes him reckless. Courts punish vendettas. They don't reward them. Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, Sadie Frost, Baroness Lawrence, the cast is glittering, but glitter doesn't equal evidence. High-profile names create pressure, not proof. And when some claimants clearly hoped for a settlement rather than a trial, it suggests a dangerous strategy: force embarrassment, extract check. That only works if the other side blinks.
It could be hugely significant. Obviously, the Daily Mail's KC, exceptionally intelligent, experienced inquisitors. Harry, I think even his greatest supporters would not claim is a great academic brain. And of course, he's not used to being challenged in any meaningful way. When he gives interviews or has conversations with people, nobody ever says to him, "Well, actually, come on, that's clearly a load of rubbish." So I think it's going to be a very dangerous moment for Harry. I think that his only hope at this stage is to be 100% tell absolutely the truth. I think if he tells even a smidgen of a lie about anything, they would jump on it and they will catch him. And I think he needs to be extremely careful. And there's a reason why people, not just members of the royal family, there's a reason why people in general try and avoid getting involved in massive lawsuits, because it sucks every part of your life and your sleep and your well-being and every part of you. And then you have this horrific, and I mean, look, Harry wants to take the Daily Mail to court. He wants his pound of flesh. But yet at the same time, what's really interesting now is that sources were saying to me, this is it. There's going to be no more legal cases. Like, we're now putting our guns down, actually, we're going back to the old-fashioned way of trying to deal with the press, which is to PR the hell out of it, to take people out for lunch.
And they clearly are doing that. And the thing is, Tom, it's actually worked with The Sun. Yeah. The Sun's pretty on board these days with Harry and Meghan. I mean, running a lot of their nonsense propaganda, and it's like, exactly. Maybe this war was a terrible idea. Look, two big royal books I want to speak to you about. First, William and Catherine. This has just been announced by the Daily Mirror. First joint biography in over a decade, written by the Mirror's royal editor, Russell Myers. Now, look, he's very much in the royal rota. So do we assume, Tom, that this is going to be a favourable, soft look at the life of William and Catherine? Or do we know if Kensington Palace has worked with him, collaborated? Because, of course, they do have a close working relationship, and he is promising new revelations.
Well, I think what's really going to be interesting when this book comes out is to what extent is there briefing against Harry and Meghan in the book. I mean, I think we all know what I think we all know what the intimate inside story of William and Kate is going to be. I think it's going to be they're lovely and they have a beautiful marriage and they look after their kids, right?
And these two are terrible, terrible cretins.
Yeah, and like, you know, like Russell's great. You know, he's a good reporter. He's worked at the Mirror for years. Like, I don't think anyone would dispute that. You know, he's a consummate professional, and I'm sure the book would be highly readable, and I'm sure it would be very entertaining and really fun read for, you know, especially for fans of William and Catherine, of which there are many. What I think politically, do KP go there in briefing against Harry and Meghan for the book? That's the only thing really that would be particularly of interest to me at this stage, speculatively. Now, he may have some massive bombshell in there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's going to be interesting to see if they have assisted at all in terms of Catherine's cancer battle too. You know, how was William told? Do we know the circumstances behind him pulling out of the memorial service? There are still some gaps in our knowledge in terms of that.
Look, fundamentally, the huge question is what was actually wrong with Catherine, because as anyone will recall at the time, for example, and I did a story about this at the Daily Beast, was that the Royal Rota reported that she had pre-cancerous cells. Now, after I did the story, that was deleted. I think it was Sky News who had it up, and when my story actually came out, they deleted it. Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that Catherine wasn't really ill and it wasn't really scary, but there have been. I think it would be really interesting if we knew exactly what was wrong with her. I don't think that they will tell us, and I don't think they're going to tell Russell Myers, and I don't think if Russell Myers knew, he would write it. But that is the big sort of unresolved story about the whole Catherine cancer story, which I think is really interesting. And I think there was a lot of mixed messaging at the time about, was this preventative chemo? You know, she had surgery for abdominal pain, and then they removed, the cancer was present, was the term that they used, yet it seemed to be completely removed in that operation, and then it was preventative chemotherapy. So what actually happened there? If you know, it's long been rumored that there was other pressures going on behind the scenes. Now, if there was information about that, that genuinely would be a bombshell.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I think you're right.
I would be surprised.
Yeah,
too.
I think the main thing to look for, I totally agree, is how much briefing is there against Harry and Meghan, which I think we can safely assume will have come from Kensington Palace. But we know that area is fraught with risk, given the criticism of the Sussexes for collaborating with Omid Scobie when they were still in the royal family. This one may be even more interesting, though. It's Andrew Lowney, a scoop from his Substack. And remember, he's just written the book entitled, which caused really the final defenestration of Andrew from the British royal family. And Andrew reporting that he is considering a memoir that would paint him as a victim of Me Too and wokeness. Now, it was actually AOL that first quoted a Palace aide saying, at its core, this is a financial problem for Andrew. His liabilities are mounting, legal costs have not eased, and there is little willingness within the family to step in. And Lowney says the briefing feels more like a threat to get what he wants out of any forthcoming deal, and mirrors similar hints emerging from Sarah Ferguson's camp that she is considering a book as well. He goes on, I find it hard to believe that Andrew has any money troubles. It's more likely that the parallel here is the Duke of Windsor. As I wrote in The Traitor King, he pled poverty too so he could get a bigger allowance, when in fact he had the modern equivalent of many millions of pounds stashed away. Questions also need to be asked about what happened to the £4 million raised when Ferguson sold her Belgravia Mews house. Few would feel the cold hand of poverty with such a son, and it's likely proof that claims of penury from the former Duchess are also overblown. Given that Fergie has already written 2 memoirs, most recently in 2011, it's hard to think what she has to add, given the only notable thing that has happened to her in the intervening years was well-established friendship and financial links to the most notorious sex offender of the 21st century. A further source is quoted as saying, Andrew feels deeply wronged by how events have unfolded. He is fully convinced that public opinion would soften if his version of the story were fully aired, and he wants to cast himself as someone who was misled and ultimately betrayed. As I learned researching and writing Entitled, there is almost no limit to Andrew's delusions about his status and reputation. That he was delighted with how the disastrous Newsnight interview went is just one example of how much his complete lack of awareness can and does get him into. A memoir by Andrew painting himself as a victim would not just stretch credibility to breaking point, it would also be incredibly offensive to the actual victim of Jeffrey Epstein, given that he has consistently refused to help US authorities or Congress with their inquiries. Now, this one is interesting to me, Tom, because I have always been told by sources close to Andrew, but of course, a lot can change very quickly, and a lot has changed very quickly, that he was resolutely opposed to writing a book or a memoir, and that he had always reassured the king that that is something he would never do. What do you reckon?
I think, as Andrew says, I think Andrew Loney says, I think it's a threat to try and get a better deal. To be totally honest, I think the deal Andrew got initially was pretty good. I've been told that he's got a pension of well over 100,000 a year. That, of course, is worth millions. He's got his lovely new house, which is being fully refurbished for him up in Sandringham. He's got staff at that house. He's keeping his police protection. I sort of feel like the negotiation has been done. I think that I actually slightly disagree with Andrew Loney in that I think that Sarah Ferguson could write an amazing book, because like the ones that she did before, I think that she, politically, she had her eye on getting back in with the royals, and she always knew what side her bread was buttered, right? Now it's pretty clear there's no butter going around at all. And I think that actually, if you look at what Sarah, I mean, I've been told plenty of hints that Sarah is thinking about writing a book, and that is the book that, frankly, I would like to read. I mean, the ringside seat at the Diana thing. I mean, it would make what Harry and Meghan have to say, her history of conflict with Prince Philip, like the allegations that Philip was recording her phone call. There is so much stuff there from Sarah. I think that if she were to write a book, it would be, and if she would just go, to hell with it. I've had it with all of you. You've completely abandoned us and treated us terribly, and I don't care. Like, it would be an amazing book, but I don't think
she's not going to do it, is it?
Because I think they're using the leverage of the children.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think
Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, we have to remember. And just finally, Tom, all of these moving vans showing up soon. It looks like there is preparation going on finally at Sandringham. So is he going to be out, as the Sun is reporting, before his 66th birthday? Is that your understanding?
I think how you can tell that this is real and that he is going to be out, right, is that, hang on, let me just find the quote. Absolutely brilliant, to the Sun. He's finally decided he needs to get on with his life, and so is moving out sooner than thought and starting afresh by the end of the month, or at least before his birthday in February. It's the kind of giveaway that it is actually happening, isn't it? When Andrew goes, actually, I've decided that for the good of my family and my personal wellness, I've decided to move out of my house. Yeah, he's gone. He's on the move. He's gone. I suspect he was told, get going. Maybe an extra inducement was provided, but I think that him being at Royal Lodge is not really serving anyone anymore. It's not. The kids don't want to visit him there because they don't want to be photographed driving in. Like, he's got almost no contact with the children. His friends don't want to come there because they don't want to be photographed driving in. At Marsh Farm, the key thing, very funny, some photographs showing these enormous hoardings being erected around the entire house.
And the Sky TV satellite, critically. Oh,
Didn't
God.
you think that was do you remember in Private Eye, Sky, where they always had Murdoch papers putting in gratuitous Sky TV. How do they know it's Sky TV?
Yes.
It's
Although
TV.
the Sun,
who has Sky TV
no
anymore?
longer
We're all
has a
YouTube
commercial
and
connection
Netflix.
with Sky, does it? So I guess there would be no commercial motivation for them to do that. But look, Tom Sykes,
muscle memory.
yes, we will keep across it. And are you going to be reporting on the case for the Royalist?
Yeah, I've applied. So they haven't done the allocation yet. They're doing they're doing an overflow room. Or I think actually in the end they've decided to just let us watch it remotely because I think there were too many people for an overflow room. So
okay, well that's going to be fascinating.
So
So make sure
Monday,
you are subscribed to the Royalist on Substack for what is going to be, I mean, look, it's a long case. Let's just say it's a long case, 9 weeks. But if indeed Harry does take the stand next week, it's going to be very seminal. So make sure you subscribe to the Royalist. Yes,
on
exactly.
Thursday. And apparently he's going to be there Monday, Tuesday, and then apparently on Thursday, But
in the stand.
I don't think it's confirmed yet when his evidence
No,
is.
I guess it depends if anything overruns, but it's looking likely. Okay, well, great stuff. We will be across at Tom, reading The Royalist, and of course covering it here on Outspoken Too. So thank you so much, and we will speak very soon. And of course, if you do want to subscribe.
The Daily Mail hasn't. This section cuts straight to the truth about modern litigation culture. Use courts as leverage. The Mail's refusal to settle sends a chilling message. We're not afraid of daylight. And that's terrifying if your case relies on shadows. This is where the trap snaps shut. With legal costs approaching £37 million, nobody can walk away anymore. Every claimant is financially and reputationally chained to the outcome. Win or lose, someone's career is ending here. This is the most damning contradiction of the entire saga. Harry condemns tabloids for unethical behavior, yet relies on convicted phone hackers to prove his case. You cannot call someone a criminal and your truth-teller in the same breath. That hypocrisy will be weaponized in court. This is the moment of maximum danger. A senior royal, with a documented history of contradictions, facing elite barristers trained to dismantle testimony piece by piece. If he lies once, the entire case implodes. Courts do not tolerate my truth. They demand the truth. The most revealing admission: no more lawsuits after this. That's not confidence. That's exhaustion. The pivot back to PR lunches and soft media briefings quietly admits what many suspected: the war on the press failed. The upcoming biography reinforces the contrast. William and Catherine: stability, duty, silence. Harry and Meghan: conflict, litigation, exposure. The more Harry fights, the stronger the Wales brand becomes. This section exposes a familiar royal tactic: give me a better deal or I'll tell my story. But Andrew's credibility is already shredded. A victim narrative memoir would not rehabilitate him, it would inflame outrage. The monarchy knows it. The moving vans tell the real story. This isn't voluntary healing. It's managed exile. Andrew isn't negotiating anymore, he's complying. If Harry takes the stand, this becomes one of the most consequential royal courtroom moments in modern history. Win or lose, nothing looks the same after. Your turn. Is Prince Harry bravely standing up to the press, or has he walked straight into the most dangerous mistake of his life? Comment below. Accountability if the Mail should face consequences. Self-destruction if Harry has gone too far. Like if courts should deal in facts, not feelings. Subscribe for no-spin royal commentary. Share this video, this debate matters. This case isn't just about Harry. It's about truth, power, and who gets believed when narratives collapse.